Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters and writers and journalists and editors, people who put stuff out about the borough of the Bronx, so you can get a little insight into what they're writing, not only what they're writing, but also what they're thinking about when they do put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, et cetera, et cetera. In our second segment, we always do arts. We have, let's just put it this way, the hip hop photographer is going to show us original photos from when hip hop was created, uh, those many years ago in the borough of the Bronx. But right now, let's say hello to Samantha Maldonado from the city. She's a reporter where she covers climate change and the environment. Samantha, it's so nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just a little background since we haven't had you on the program before. So you have always been interested in climate change, or I got the job, so I said, all right, I'll cover climate change. And
Well,
let's be honest.
yeah, that happened at my previous job, actually. I had been working for Politico covering environmental and energy policy. And so that's really what got me hooked on climate. And I joined the city about 3 years ago. And I was covering politics, but, climate was my area of expertise. And there's no shortage of stories about that here.
And from a moral perspective, a philosophical perspective, a literal perspective, what is it about covering climate change that inspires you?
Yeah, well, I think it's a big crisis, and it's aligned and braided in with so many other crises we have here in the city, whether that's health, inequalities, housing, all sorts of things. So you can look at climate from a lot of different angles, and it's always a challenge to find sort of the people story in it, and also to think about the future, but the future being here now, and sort of the impacts that we already see.
Well, you pretty much read my mind and read our idea of a story that you wrote, because here's an angle that some people haven't thought of. And I'll give a little of the background, having watched this process for, I guess, the few years that it's been. The whole idea of taking down and breaking up Rikers Island into four borough jails is out there. There has been a schedule of when they expect to make that happen. We can talk about that. But along the way, there was a lot of talk. Hey, here's all this space. Let's turn it into something green. Uh, the mayor came out. You wrote about it. Let's talk about what Mayor Adams wants to do over there on Rikers Island.
Yeah. So the Adams administration put out two different studies recently, and a couple weeks ago, and they basically have this vision for Rikers Island. And basically, what it looks like is how do we use this space for greener or clean energy? And so, in some ways, they've envisioned solar power. They've envisioned some places where offshore wind can interconnect, so that way it can be powered by wind, and that's being developed. And then also, sort of the big piece is this wastewater treatment plant, and they envision something new and something a lot of environmental benefits. Maybe they can have biogas, basically kind of a renewable type of gas process there, and also just have a lot of environmental attributes that we don't have from
Right.
the existing wastewater treatment plants.
If just philosophically, and if you look at, from a city planning point of view, if we give you a large island somewhat central to New York City, I mean, you can get to Queens, you can get to Manhattan, you can go a lot from where that is located. Obviously, it's in the Bronx and connected to the Bronx. Um, if we gave you a big plot, what would you like to do there? And I'd like to think forward thinking people would say, yeah, let's turn it green. Let's make it green. So I think from a plan point of view, as just a resident of New York City, um, I say, wow, what a great idea. Sure, we're going to do this. Let's do this. We started out saying that the time frame is a little strange, and this whole Rikers process, considering that it's affecting four boroughs, and that those, including the Bronx, intimately, what where are we at, and are we really moving these into those boroughs by 2027? I guess that's
Yeah.
my long-winded way of asking that question.
Yeah, well, that's up in the air right now. The budget director who works for the Adams administration said that we are not on progress to open those four borough-based jails by 2027. Um, And also, there's the jail population to think about. Those borough-based jails hold about 4,000 inmates, whereas Rikers is over 6,000. The population's over 6,000 right now. So that's a misalignment as well. And so to
Um,
get the population down to where we need, that will take a while. And Mayor Adams in the past has actually asked the council for to come up with a plan B to figure out if there's a way to not close Rikers by 2027, as the law says.
wow. So here we are in 2024. 2027 is still 3 years away. There are reports out there which talk about construction by 2035, completion by 2045, fully completed by 2060. I don't want to do the math, but you might not still be interested in climate change by that point. I mean, it's really 40 years from now is really a long way away. So in a way, I don't know how to express it to people. Like, should they be thinking about it? I mean, we're happy about it. I'm wrestling with it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think you're not the only one who thinks that way. It was sort of confusing because those reports that said, this green vision is feasible on Rikers Island, they came out the same day that the budget director had said we probably won't get borough-based jails done by 2027. So there's sort of a mismatch in communications here. I'm not really sure what to make of that, and a lot of my sources aren't quite sure either. But it is encouraging that it's possible to do these things. Just will it actually happen?
Well, that I guess for any plan, any large climate plan, and this would be one, you need to have an idea, and you need to have a good idea, and a creative idea, and a green idea. Um, uh, but if they get it done, as I understand, and this is music to Bronx ears, that wastewater treatment plant in Hunts Point will be gone. So I guess for my friends and neighbors in the Bronx, they have something to root for.
Yeah,
You know.
maybe. I mean, one of the possibilities was that they could replace 4 of the wastewater treatment plants in the area with this new one. But there was also a possibility that they could keep the 4, just upgrade them, and then add this new one as well on
All
Rikers.
right, let's do you and me. We'll do a quick vote in the Bronx. How many people want them to decommission the wastewater treatment plant in Hunts Point? I know all of my viewers who are watching are voting yes on that. But all right, we'll see which way that goes. Another thing you wrote about, which I thought was really interesting, as I mentioned to you, and you can see the apartment buildings behind me. I live in an apartment building, so the notion of my personal, and I live high up, so my personal belongings being flooded out is not that prominent. But this is a big thing for a lot of people in the Bronx and a lot of neighborhoods. Maybe I'm being naive about it. Let's just talk about the whole idea of flood insurance, which you wrote about. Do you need flood insurance and how to get it? A guide for New York renters in a city that is largely a collection of islands. Water is an underestimated threat, and don't my friends and neighbors who live in Soundview and Co-op City and over there on City Island and in the East Bronx and all the areas in the East Bronx, they know that all too well. So let's just talk about the flood insurance. Is it hard to get? Can you get it? Should you have it? How much does it cost? Give us a little background about that, if you would.
Sure. Well, this guide is specifically for renters because if you have a federally backed mortgage and you're in a flood zone, you actually are required to have flood insurance. Not everyone.
In addition to home insurance, which in some cases you're required to have. I know
Yes.
I live in Mitchell-Lama, and I'm required to have home insurance.
Okay. Yeah. So it's in addition, and that's if you live in a FEMA flood zone. But renters aren't required to have it, and some have renters insurance, but renters insurance does not cover floods or damage from floods. And so to figure out if you maybe should get it, on a floor or in a garden level apartment, you can look and see if you're in a flood zone, and that could be either from coastal flooding, so the ocean or a river coming in possibly to
Right.
your apartment. And you can also check if you're in a low-lying area and might get stormwater flooding. So when it rains a lot and the sewers can't handle it, will there be flooding? And that can happen, often does, when you're not close to the coast. You're just
Especially if you've seen it happen maybe on a smaller level, and I certainly don't want to, predict Armageddon, but it's almost like, well, we've given you a warning. Maybe you ought to do it. Um, if you already have renter's insurance, you should add on the flood insurance. I mean, that was
Yeah,
one of the questions you asked in your story.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you're on a lower floor, and, your normal renter's insurance probably does not cover flood damage or damage from water, so you should look into flood insurance.
How expensive is it? And in this day and age, I would think the insurers are saying, "Oh, good, they need insurance. We're going to give you a nice little price for it."
Yeah, it depends,
I'm sorry. I'm so sarcastic.
no. It depends. People can call an insurance provider and get a quote. It sort of depends on where they live and what kind of coverage they're asking for. I had gotten a few different quotes, and they ranged. They were a little over 100 per year. Some were about 300 per year. I just gave some sample locations and got that back. And then there's also, you can go through a government backed program, or you can go through a private backed program. And so just what is covered, how quickly you might get the money if you do make a claim on it, and your premium really vary.
And what does it cover? I mean, let's say, well, wait a minute, I got this insurance, and now we really had a problem, and I lost my living room or something. Goodness, I hope it doesn't happen. But am I going to be
Mhm.
okay, or is it really kind of like, well, it's like dental insurance; they don't cover anything.
Yeah. Well, it does depend on what kind of plan you get, but renter's flood insurance is technically for covering your belongings. So if there is a flood and your belongings get ruined, they can cover that. It wouldn't
Mhm.
cover things that are outside your apartment. Maybe your bike is outside and that gets ruined from a flood,
Oh,
something like
or
that.
your car? I mean, a car.
Yeah, nope, that's not going to cover your car. It won't.
On the other hand, maybe your car insurance might,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't have a
depending on what the
car.
rider is. Yeah, yeah. I'm just
Yeah,
thinking out loud. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
So it's things in the apartment.
yes, exactly.
Samantha, we're just about out of time, and so I'm going to put you right on the spot. What's coming up? What are you working on? Give us a hint, or is there
Yeah,
nothing really happening, and you're going to go outside, put
there's
your finger out, and say, "Is it raining yet?"
right, exactly. Yeah, that's how I do my work. I have my eyes on Local Law 97. That is the way that building owners are trying to get their emissions down for climate reasons and because of
Right.
the new law in the city, and just some new developments, looking where we're building housing and how much over the city.
And what it might do to affect the environment. Of course, it's been well documented that the biggest polluter in New York City is the houses, is the buildings. I mean, we know that. Listen, Samantha Maldonado from the city is the climate and environment reporter. Great, we're going to have you back. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Keep writing great stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Samantha. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I promised you, and we will do photos from the original days of hip hop. It's coming to the Bronx Documentary Center. We're going to talk about that. We'll be right back.